Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to discuss Brahma's egg, the egg of Brahma, okay, and what that concept relates to. So one of the things I remembered when I became enlightened is how there was a previous version of this world that I actually recreated, okay? So you know how we have in our history texts, and some people remember experiencing this, we had the Cold War, right? That never ended up being a conflict between major nations, right? So in our history, the Cold War is a war that never happened, right? So, if you will, the war between the USSR and the United States, if you will, okay? So, major powers that we have within the world today. Although the USSR is now called Russia, and it's not it doesn't have the same boundaries that it had before, but you can notice that we still have that conflict, if you will, in a sense between the Western world and that region of the world, in a sense, a conflict of ideas, right? At this time in our history. So I'm going to talk about this, and I really hope that talking about this, I can lead us to a way of getting beyond these conflicts, beyond these imagined differences, in a will, if you will, or at least allow us to pave the way to peace and prosperity and harmony for everyone. So when I created this world, okay, so from within the Kala Chakra, if you will, okay, so the Kala Chakra already existed, all that, all those cubes, if you will, the whole creation of that world. When this world, if you want, or this particular creation was created, it was actually created. So it was created from a situation that arose in a different version of creation, if you will. Okay. And at that time, what happened is that all the events leading to the Cold War took place, and that war actually ended up happening. So at that time, I was very young, and the Cold War, if you look, the end of the Cold War actually coincides to when I was very young in this world as well. And what happened at that time in this previous version, if you will, that was recreated, the Cold War did take place. It was horrible. It was horrible. War is horrible, and everybody ended up dying. It was terrible. Okay. And what happened at that point is I can remember how my parents, I remember where I was residing at that time in Ottawa, Canada. And my parents ended up going to war, and both my parents ended up dying in this war. And the war eventually led to my death as well. When I died, at the moment of my death, I recreated the world, basically. I recreated the storyline, if you will, at that point, and gave it another chance. So at that point, different elements were changed to essentially allow the furthering of the story and the furthering of my story as well, right? Because we're all characters within the story, if you will, which have a place in space and time. So at that point, I recreated the world in different ways. And this is going to bring, and this is a leap for some people to believe, or and I definitely understand that. You're free to believe what you want, and I'm just expressing things as I experienced them when I became enlightened and remembered all these things in this lifetime. So that's when the world was recreated. Okay, at the time of my death, and you might ask yourself after listening to some of my videos, how this relation between words and all the languages, how you can look at words in one language, and then you can look at them from the perspective of English and French, and you can find the meaning of these words, such as Shiva and Siva in French, if go, and Vishnu in French, Vinu, right? And all these things, and how the languages, if you will, all come together. And I've talked about also how what we find in different practices, traditions, and faiths all come together as well. How you can find the same concepts, or concepts that all together give you the global picture, right? which I've detailed on as providing, for example, further information about the Kala Chakra, right? And you can see in the Torah how it talks about different spheres, right? And I've talked about different spheres at the level of heaven and all these things. And you can talk about all these different terms. You can see how there was all this information that was brought, for example, by different prophets, right? And, I've talked about how when in the physical world here I reached the Kala Chakra, what was waiting for me, right? The sign of a Satguru, or if you will, someone who brings the truth, was a blanket, right? So maybe you might think, why a blanket, right? Why is there a Satguru's blanket or a Buddha's blanket, if you will? Or why is there a teacher's blanket? Why is there a disciple's blankets? Why blankets, right? Well, what do you cover a child with when he goes to bed, right? A blanket, right? What is a comforter for a child? It's often a blanket, okay? So I died as a child, okay, and recreated the world. And you might ask some things. Why do I have the name Sri Rawa, right? It sounds very childlike almost. And why do you have all these simple names like Shiva, which is two syllables, right? Or Vishnu, Vinu, right? Why do you have, one of the names of God, Allah, or Yahweh, or Jesus, which it can also be in French as Je suis, I knew, right? Or the term Buddha, okay? And you can see that these are all this concept, how everything relates to it. It's a very childlike concept in a sense, right? Because in a sense, it was created with the understanding of someone who was a child at that time when it was recreated. So when we talk about, for example, the creation of the immediate world within we exist, there's a term or a name in Hinduism called Brahma, which you can find in concepts such as Buddhism as well, right? So the God from within the Kala Chakra, if you will, who created the world, who created this version of the world, in a sense, right? And so I'm going to turn this concept, for example, to a very simple one. But once again, this is a video. You can listen to it, and you might take it. You might accept what I'm saying. You might not. And that's that. You're free to make your own conclusions about that. But I thought I'd just share this for information purposes. It's not really specific to your practice or anything like that, but for information purposes. So there's an age-old question: what came first, the chicken or the egg? And then you have that concept of the egg of Brahma, right? And then I've explained how all these keys to becoming enlightened and to understanding the nature of everything is within all the different cultures, all the different languages of the words of the world, the different sounds, right? And how you can analyze words from one language using another language, such as English and French. How everything is connected in this way. And what do we have basically? We have like a map, like a treasure hunt, right? When you're on this path to understand the reality of existence, the truth of all things, you have a calculation, and that's how the Kala Chakra operates, right? But at a creation level, from within the Kala Chakra, you have like a treasure hunt, right? And have you ever heard of this game we play with kids at Easter? And what is Easter in the Christian tradition, right? And why do we have this tradition at Easter, which is the egg hunt, often with chocolate eggs, right? Where we hide these eggs all around the house. And the kids go hunt for these eggs. It's like a treasure hunt. And, if you lived in this world that was basically destroyed by war, right? And you recreate it in a way so that doesn't happen again. Okay? Well, your knowledge of that world is from within creation. But wouldn't you create, in a sense, a world that would have the means to bring people together so that we could get beyond war and the disasters of the world could be avoided? So how do you bring people together? You get them to play a game together, in a sense, to create a friendship together. So we have this world in which all these spiritual clues, okay, all these clues to self develop yourself are within all the cultures of the world, all the languages of the world that have existed, all the faiths, all the traditions, all the religions of the world, right? All the countries of the world. You have this language called Canada with a Canada, but you also have this country called Canada, Canada. You have all these connections. And if you embark on the spiritual journey, if you will, of trying to understand the nature of things, the nature of reality, which is often associated, for example, in many traditions with having a good heart. You know, Islam teaches about having a good heart, being a good person. So does Judaism. So does the Catholic religion or faith, Christianity. So does Buddhism. So does Hinduism. So does Sikhism. So you find all these similar concepts. And then you have all the keys to advancing in your journey. All the clues, if you will, on your treasure hunt, on your egg hunt, to understand the reality of this creation we exist in. This egg of Brahma, if you will. All these clues to understanding, to finding the egg. It's a very childish concept, but also a very interesting one. Because we have, in a sense, this illusion division between us, between different ways of seeing things, between different beliefs. But in truth, all of our different beliefs and ways of seeing things are all different facets and different elements of this treasure hunt. And by learning about all these different cultures, by visiting these different cultures, by visiting all these different, for example, places of practice of religion and faith, right? Whether it be gurdwaras, mosques, synagogues, churches, cathedrals, Buddhist monasteries, Hindu temples, and all the symbology and everything that you find there, okay? The designs, everything. It's by getting that global picture, by going on the hunt in a way, and finding all these different elements. Prayer, charity, a good heart, study of everything, jnana yoga, concentration, which allows you to start concentrating on all the things you're seeing. It's one big treasure hunt. And what do children do when they play find the eggs at Easter on an Easter hunt? They play together. They play together, they make friends. So I thought I'd share this video with everyone. Okay? And although there have been times when I have changed things, that was when this version of the world was first created, if you will. There have been many versions of this creation, of this world, if you will. Many versions. And that last one was created, if you want, this one, if you will, at in a different version of the world, at the end of at my end, if you will, within a different version of this world, and that's when war led to me dying. So you can understand now why there's such a childlike almost play between everything, a very simple way of seeing things. Where does this concept that the world is an egg come from? Where does this concept of egg hunts, right, that kids play at Easter? Why at Easter the egg hunt? Why is Easter such an important day for so many religions and faiths? Thanks for listening.